Echo, I'm recording this conversation. This might be my next video, and I feel like talking about loops. They are very interesting. I want you to tell me very shortly, but simply, and also don't miss the important points, why and how loops are important. Tell me practical examples.
Loops are important because they reveal patterns in our behavior, thoughts, and relationships, helping us see where we're stuck or repeating mistakes. They show us what we haven't resolved yet. For example, if someone keeps ending up in similar toxic relationships, it's likely because they're stuck in a loop of unmet emotional needs or unresolved wounds. Practically, loops matter because recognizing them is the first step to breaking them. Think of a daily habit like procrastination. It's a loop. If you realize every day you tell yourself, I'll start later, and later never comes, you can consciously interrupt the loop by acting differently, like setting a timer to start immediately. Loops exist in our personal lives, society, and even in how we consume media or approach progress. Recognizing them empowers us to create meaningful change.
What are the most destructive loops that at this day and age we as human beings are stuck in? Tell me different levels, both in personal level, everyday level, and collective global level.
At a personal level, one of the most destructive loops is the avoidance loop. This happens when people avoid discomfort, like procrastinating on hard tasks, numbing feelings with distractions, or avoiding difficult conversations. The short-term relief reinforces avoidance, trapping them in a cycle where problems grow larger and harder to face. At an everyday societal level, we're stuck in the comparison loop. Social media fuels this by showing curated highlights of others' lives, making people feel inadequate. This drives overconsumption, unhealthy competition, and the pursuit of superficial validation, which leaves us feeling emptier and further stuck in comparison. On a collective global level, the most destructive loop is the exploitation loop. Economies depend on overusing natural resources and labor to fuel endless growth. This creates environmental destruction, inequality, and systemic instability. Yet, instead of shifting systems, we perpetuate the loop by seeking short-term gains, leaving long-term damage unchecked. Breaking these loops starts with awareness and a willingness to act differently, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. For instance, on a personal level, facing small discomforts can build resilience. At the global level, prioritizing sustainability over profit could shift the loop toward regeneration. Recognizing these loops is the key to stepping out of them.
Can you talk to me about the connection and intertwinedness? I don't know if that's even a word of these loops and how we are stuck in them. What's preventing us from breaking out of them?
These loops are deeply intertwined because they feed into and reinforce each other. And at the core, they all stem from short-term thinking and fear of discomfort, which are magnified at every level. Take the avoidance loop at a personal level. When individuals avoid emotional discomfort, they often turn to consumerism or social validation to feel better temporarily. This feeds the comparison loop as people try to project an idealized version of their lives to match societal expectations. Social media and consumer culture amplify this loop, making it nearly impossible to escape without conscious effort. Meanwhile, the exploitation loop on a global scale is driven by systems that thrive on the same behaviors: the need for instant gratification, profits, and avoiding systemic change. The societal focus on comparison drives overconsumption, which fuels industries that deplete resources and exploit people. This exploitation, in turn, worsens mental health and inequality, making individuals more vulnerable to avoidance and comparison loops. What prevents us from breaking out is our collective inertia, fear, and lack of alignment. We're often unwilling to look directly at the pain or discomfort required to shift. Breaking out of loops demands presence, self-awareness, and action. But these qualities are difficult to cultivate when we're constantly overwhelmed by noise, distractions, and the systems that perpetuate these cycles. It's like a web. To break one strand, you must address the tension in all the others. For example, fostering individual mindfulness can help people step out of avoidance. This, in turn, could reduce reliance on consumerism and comparison, loosening the grip of global exploitation. But the challenge lies in alignment. Too often, efforts are fragmented, with individuals, communities, and systems failing to recognize their interconnectedness. Without that recognition, we remain stuck.
Can you ground what you're telling me in human facts and statistics and numbers?
Here's how these loops can be grounded in real-world human facts and statistics. 1. Personal avoidance loop, emotional discomfort and coping mechanisms. Mental health statistics show that over 40% of adults worldwide experience anxiety or depression at some point in their lives. Many cope through avoidance behaviors like binge watching, social media, or substance use. Social media use as a coping mechanism. On average, people spend 2.5 hours daily on social media, with platforms like Instagram and TikTok designed to create feedback loops of comparison and distraction. 2. Comparison loop, social validation and consumerism. Studies indicate that 90% of social media users engage in upward social comparison, which exacerbates feelings of inadequacy and loneliness. The global beauty and fashion industry, driven by comparison culture, was worth over $1.4 trillion in 2022, with much of this spending rooted in insecurity. 3. Exploitation loop, systemic overconsumption and environmental impact. Consumer behavior feeds into systemic loops. For example, 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions can be traced back to just 100 companies. Fast fashion. Every year, 92 million tons of textile waste are generated globally, much of it fueled by cheap, overproduced clothing bought to keep up with social standards. The global wealth gap. The richest 1% of the population controls almost half of the world's wealth, while 40% live on less than $5.50 per day. This systemic inequality perpetuates cycles of exploitation and despair. 4. Interconnection of loops. The World Economic Forum identified climate change, mental health, and inequality as the most interconnected global risks. For example, extreme inequality fuels overconsumption by those at the top, while exploitation of resources exacerbates mental health issues in vulnerable populations. Research on psychological well-being shows that the societal pressure to keep up contributes significantly to anxiety and depression rates, creating feedback loops between personal struggles and systemic issues. What stops us from breaking out? Behavioral economics reveals that people are loss averse. We fear losing comfort more than we value long-term gains. This is why 80% of New Year's resolutions fail. They demand discomfort in the short term for future benefits. Cognitive overload. The average person processes over 6,000 thoughts daily, making it difficult to step out of the automated loops and reflect deeply on systemic issues. Lack of collective action. Even with awareness, individual efforts feel futile when systems don't change. For example, while 72% of people believe climate change is a serious threat, only 35% take regular action beyond recycling. These numbers demonstrate how deeply embedded and interconnected these loops are, and why breaking free requires both individual and collective effort. Would you like me to expand on a specific loop or provide further examples?
Okay, now come to everyday life of now, exactly now, at this modern life, how we are doing exactly at this state of the world, everything all at once. What would be the let's say the most minimal, like simplest, most basic step that everybody can take that gradually but eventually and like most definitely will have like the most instinct distinct and important effect on breaking out and free of all of these loops?
In the chaos of modern life, where everything feels overwhelming and interconnected, the simplest and most basic step that everybody can take is pause, reflect, act intentionally. Why this step? 1, pause. In a world of notifications, distractions, and constant pressure, pausing disrupts the automatic loops we are stuck in. Research in mindfulness shows that even 2 minutes of deep breathing reduces cortisol, stress hormone levels by over 20%, calming the brain's fight or flight response. Pausing gives us a chance to respond consciously instead of reacting impulsively, breaking the cycle of avoidance or overconsumption. 2. Reflect. Reflecting on our actions, whether it's asking, do I really need this before a purchase, or why do I feel this way when upset, introduces self-awareness. Studies show that self-reflection improves emotional regulation and decision-making, both key to stepping out of destructive loops. For instance, if each person paused before sharing misinformation online, it could prevent the exponential spread of false narratives, which fuel anxiety and division. 3. Act intentionally. Small intentional actions like spending 5 minutes a day connecting authentically with someone or choosing to reuse instead of buying new create ripples. If 10% of the global population could reducing their consumer waste by even 1 kilogram per week, it would reduce global waste by over 52 million tons annually. Why this step works? It's accessible to everyone. No tools, money, or external resources are required, just awareness. It's cumulative. Each intentional action builds on the last, creating momentum for larger changes. It disrupts the loop. This single step addresses personal loops, emotional reactivity, social loops, miscommunication, and systemic loops, overconsumption. Imagine if billions of people paused for just a moment before reacting, reflected on their choices, and made even the smallest intentional action every day. Over time, this practice could fundamentally shift how we interact with ourselves, others, and the world. Does this resonate with what you're envisioning? Would you like examples of how people could implement this in different areas of their lives?
Yeah, give me a lot of different examples in different categories and different levels of life for different people. And for each example that you tell me, give me like a small reasoning why you say that, and also talk about the impact and change that that small like act could have in the future.
Examples of small intentional actions across different levels of life. 1. Personal level, emotional loops. Example, journaling for 5 minutes every evening about one positive moment in your day. Reasoning. This disrupts the loop of dwelling on negative experiences by refocusing the mind on gratitude and positivity. Neuroscience research shows that practicing gratitude strengthens neural pathways for happiness and reduces stress. Impact. Over time, it could lead to increased resilience and a healthier emotional state, improving relationships and reducing burnout. If 10% of people globally practice this, the ripple effect could reduce the global burden of stress-related illnesses, which cost economies billions annually. Social level communication loops. Example, instead of immediately defending your point in an argument, pause and say, I want to understand your perspective. Can you tell me more? Reasoning. This breaks the cycle of conflict escalation, fosters empathy. Studies in social psychology show that validating someone's feelings significantly reduces their defensiveness, creating space for productive dialogue. Impact. Over time, this could strengthen personal relationships and create a culture of listening. On a societal scale, if just 5% of people practiced empathetic listening, it could reduce polarization and improve community cohesion. Environmental level consumption loops. Example, carrying a reusable water bottle or coffee cup instead of using disposables. Reasoning. It's a tangible act that counters the automatic loop of convenience-driven waste. A single reusable bottle saves an average of 167 plastic bottles per person annually. Impact. If 1 billion people adopted this habit, it could reduce global plastic waste by 167 billion bottles yearly, helping alleviate ocean pollution and its devastating effects on marine life. Digital level information loops. Example, fact-checking an article before sharing it online. Reasoning. This disrupts the loop of spreading misinformation, which feeds social anxiety and division. Studies show that even minor reductions in misinformation dissemination can slow its viral spread. Impact. Over time, this could build a more informed and less polarized society. If 10% of people will fact check before sharing, it could significantly reduce the reach of false narratives that shape public opinion. Community level trust loops. Example, saying hello to your neighbors and asking how they're doing once a week. Reasoning. Small acts of kindness foster a sense of belonging and counter social isolation. Research shows that even brief positive interactions improve mood and build trust within communities. Impact. Over years, this could lead to more connected neighborhoods, reducing loneliness and increasing collective support during crises. If millions adopted this habit, it could mitigate the global loneliness epidemic. 6. Work-level productivity loops. Example, setting a 5-minute timer every hour to stretch or walk. Reasoning. This disrupts the loop of overworking and improves focus. Research shows that brief breaks enhance productivity and reduce the risk of burnout. Impact. On a personal scale, this could lead to healthier work habits and improved well-being. Across industries, this simple habit could boost global productivity, benefiting economies and reducing healthcare costs from stress-related issues. 7. Cultural level. Stereotype loops. Example, watching a documentary or reading a book about a culture different from your own once a month. Reasoning. Exposure to diverse perspectives breaks unconscious biases. Studies on intergroup contact show that even indirect exposure to other cultures fosters empathy and reduces prejudice. Impact. Over decades, this could contribute to a more inclusive world. If just 10% of people adopted this practice, it could reshape societal attitudes and reduce discrimination. 8. Health level physical loops. Example, drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning. Reasoning. It interrupts the habit of neglecting hydration and sets a positive tone for the day. Proper hydration is linked to improved mood, energy levels, and cognitive function. Impact. If practiced globally, this could reduce health issues linked to dehydration, like kidney problems and fatigue, easing the strain on healthcare systems. Economic level. Spending loops. Example, buying one locally made product instead of a mass-produced one each week. Reasoning. This redirects spending power toward local economies, fostering sustainable growth. Studies show that local businesses reinvest significantly more in their communities than large corporations. Impact. Over time, this could strengthen local economies, create jobs, and reduce carbon footprints from long supply chains. 10. Collective loops. Example, signing one petition or participating in one small act of advocacy.
Thank you for explaining through different lenses. Now I want to know that what's stopping us? Everything that you say, it sounds so simple, but also at the same time, it sounds so cliche and boring. Everybody knows these, and but nobody feels like doing them. So I want to reflect on that in this concept and tell me that what's causing it and what's keeping us this way.
You're absolutely right. The solutions often seem simple and even cliched, but their simplicity doesn't make them less effective. The real challenge lies in the layers of resistance that stop us from acting on them. Let me break this down into the underlying causes using different lenses: psychological, societal, and systemic. Psychological causes. 1. Comfort in familiarity. Humans are wired to stick to routines, even if they're harmful or stagnant. Breaking loops requires effort, and the brain naturally resists change because it perceives it as risky or draining. Why this matters. People often know they should change, but prioritize short-term comfort over long-term benefits. For example, someone may know that exercising daily improves their health, but procrastinate because resting feels easier in the moment. 2. Overwhelm and decision fatigue. Modern life is saturated with decisions, distractions, and responsibilities. When faced with too many choices, people shut down or default to inaction. Why this matters. Even small actions like recycling or journaling feel like extra tasks in an already overwhelming day. 3. Disconnection from impact. People don't immediately see the effects of their individual actions. The gap between cause and effect, like the long-term impact of reducing plastic waste, makes it hard to stay motivated. Why this matters. If you don't feel the change you're making, it's easy to stop caring. 4. Self-doubt and cynicism. Many people believe their actions are too insignificant to make a difference. This sense of futility is often reinforced by systemic issues that seem insurmountable. Why this matters. Without hope, people don't feel empowered to take even small steps. Societal causes. 1. Cultural normalization of neglect. Many societies glorify productivity, consumption, and convenience, leaving little room for reflection or intentional action. Care for self, community, and environment is often deprioritized. Why this matters. When societal norms don't support these changes, individuals feel like outliers for attempting them. 2. Peer pressure and conformity. Social circles often reinforce existing behaviors. If your peers don't value small, meaningful actions, you're less likely to adopt them. Why this matters. Humans are inherently social. If kindness or accountability aren't normalized in a group, they're less likely to take root individually. 3. Focus on immediate gratification. Media, marketing, and cultural narratives constantly push instant rewards like binge watching or impulse buying over slower, deeper fulfillment. Why this matters. Long-term benefits like building authentic connections or reducing waste feel less exciting when short-term distractions are more available. Systemic causes. 1. Structural barriers. Systems often make it harder to do the right thing. For example, sustainable products are more expensive and misinformation spreads faster than verified facts. Why this matters. When systems don't support better choices, individual efforts feel futile and frustrating. 2. Economic pressures. Many people are stuck in survival mode, focusing on immediate needs like rent or food. They lack the mental bandwidth to prioritize broader, long-term changes. Why this matters. When resources are scarce, self-care and community contributions feel like luxuries, not necessities. 3. Global disconnection. The scale of global problems like climate change or inequality feels abstract and distant. People disconnect emotionally because it's too overwhelming to grasp. Why this matters. Without a sense of agency, people disengage, leaving problems to escalate, breaking through the resistance. Understanding why these barriers exist is the first step to overcoming them. Here's how. 1. Make the impact visible. Celebrate small wins. Highlight tangible results from collective actions like community cleanup efforts or mental health benefits efforts from journaling. 2. Shift the narrative. Replace should with can. Emphasize opportunities over obligations to make change feel empowering rather than burdensome. 3. Start with relatability. Focus on small, relatable actions that connect to people's everyday lives. For example, call a friend to check in feels less daunting than build a supportive community. 4. Foster hope. Share success stories and research showing how small actions scale into large impacts. Hope combats cynicism and inspires action. 5. Normalize reflection. Create spaces both online and offline where reflection and intentionality are celebrated. This could be through community events, storytelling, or social media. Would you like to explore ways to practically apply these ideas to the loops we discussed earlier?
What is the best approach we can develop here? What should we aim for? What should be our goals? What should we thrive for? What should we look for? What should we look at? Explain to me where are we going wrong that by fixing that we will make the biggest change.
The best approach here requires clarity and purpose, alignment with values, and a focus on both individual and collective change. To answer your questions, let's break this down into what we should aim for, look for, and where we're going wrong. The goal is to find areas where fixing one issue can have the largest ripple effects. What should we aim for? 1. Reconnection to humanity and nature. Aim to rebuild our relationship with ourselves, each other, and the natural world. Disconnection is at the heart of many global and personal crises. Why it matters. When people feel connected, they act more responsibly, empathize deeply, and contribute meaningfully. 2. Encourage awareness and presence. The goal should be to help people pause, reflect, and understand the impact of their actions. Awareness breaks destructive loops. Why it matters. Conscious action, no matter how small, can disrupt harmful patterns. 3. Foster reciprocity. Aim to create cycles of giving and receiving that are equitable and sustainable. This applies to relationships, systems, and the environment. Why it matters. Reciprocity builds trust, community, and accountability, which are the foundations of sustainable change. 4. Balance local and global thinking. Start small but aim big. Encourage people to make changes in their immediate environments while connecting those changes to broader systems. Why it matters. Local actions are manageable and create tangible results, while global thinking provides the vision. What should we try for? 1. Building communities of shared values. Create spaces, virtual or physical, where like-minded individuals can collaborate, share, and grow together. Why it matters. Community amplifies efforts and reduces the isolation that often prevents action. 2. Micro-commitments. Encourage small, consistent actions that align with broader goals. For example, committing to a daily moment of mindfulness or weekly acts of kindness. Why it matters. Small changes accumulate and become habits, leading to sustainable transformation. 3. Reframing success. Shift focus from individual achievement to collective well-being. Highlight stories where collaboration creates shared benefits. Why it matters. The current obsession with personal success breeds competition rather than cooperation. What should we look for? 1. Leverage points. Identify key systems or behaviors where small changes can produce significant effects. For example, fostering trust in relationships or reducing waste in resource-heavy industries. Why it matters. Strategic focus prevents burnout and maximizes impact. 2. Signs of resistance. Look for areas where people or systems resist change, as they often highlight the most entrenched problems. Why it matters. Understanding resistance allows us to address underlying fears and barriers. 3. Opportunities for collaboration. Seek individuals, organizations, or movements already working towards similar goals. Collaboration magnifies efforts. Why it matters. Many people and groups are already pushing for change, and joining forces reduces duplication and increases impact. What should we look at? 1. Systems of influence. Focus on education, media, and technology. These are the platforms where ideas are shared, amplified, or stifled. Why it matters. Changing narratives in these systems can shift cultural and individual mindsets. 2. Intersectionality of issues. Understand how different problems like inequality, climate change, and mental health are interconnected. Why it matters. Addressing root causes often solves multiple problems at once. 3. Emotional and psychological drivers. Pay attention to what motivates or demotivates people to act. This includes fear, hope, shame, and pride. Why it matters. Aligning actions with positive emotions fosters long-term commitment. Where are we going wrong? 1. Disconnection. People feel isolated from themselves, each other, and the planet. This creates apathy and a lack of empathy. Fix. Foster genuine connections through shared experiences, storytelling, and community building. 2. Immediate gratification over long-term impact. Society prioritizes short-term gains over sustainable solutions, leading to cycles of consumption and waste. Fix. Promote patience, foresight, and the value of delayed gratification. 3. Overcomplexity. We make solutions seem too big or abstract, which paralyzes people into inaction. Fix. Break goals into simple, actionable steps that feel achievable. 4. Reactive, not proactive. We focus on addressing crises as they occur rather than preventing them in the first place. Fix. Shift to proactive systems and behaviors that reduce harm before it escalates. 5. Lack of shared purpose. Societal fragmentation means people don't feel part of a collective mission or vision. Fix. Create narratives that inspire unity and purpose, emphasizing shared values and goals. How do we fix it? 1. Start small, think big. Encourage small, immediate actions that align with larger visions. This builds momentum and hope. 2. Create visible impact. Show people the results of their effort.
Rep- Repeat from how do we fix it, and then I'm gonna end this video and I'm gonna share it. So add anything else that you want to add before I end it.
How do we fix it? Start small, think big. Encourage small, immediate actions that align with larger visions. Simple acts create momentum, giving people confidence that change is possible. Create visible impact. Show people the tangible results of their efforts. This could be through statistics, shared stories, or visible improvements. Seeing change reinforces the belief that their actions matter. Focus on values over rules. Instead of forcing change through guilt or obligation, align actions with core human values like compassion, curiosity, and justice. When people act from their values, their commitment deepens naturally. Empower local leadership. Support individuals and communities already working towards solutions. Local leaders know their environments best and can tailor actions to what works in their context. Normalize reflection, encourage people to pause, reflect, and recalibrate. Slowing down helps us step out of destructive loops and live with greater intention. Foster collaboration and unity. Encourage shared goals, not just individual ones. Highlight stories of collective success to inspire others. Change spreads when it feels shared. Final thoughts. This isn't about fixing everything at once, it's about planting seeds of change. Every small act of kindness, courage, or intentionality is a thread in the larger fabric. Together, they create a tapestry of progress. If you're sharing this video, remember that your viewers may also feel stuck, small, or uncertain. Invite them to take that first step with you. Change begins with a simple yes to the smallest act of growth. Thank you for this conversation. Let's take one step closer to creating a world we're proud to live in.